Hey, hello everyone, this is Sergey from Ushanka Show again. A slightly unusual video because I would like to put it out, upload it today on July 3rd, because exactly 84 years ago, on July 3rd, 1941, Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, finally came out of hiding, and he had a speech about German attack, because Germany attacked on June 22nd, 1941, on Sunday, and Stalin waited almost 2 weeks, which is kind of unheard of, right? His country is under attack, his Western Front is collapsing, country is in panic, and its leader is in hiding single war for almost 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Churchill had his speech about German attack on exactly the same day, on June 22nd. American government issued statement on June 24th, so 2 days later. Comrade Stalin, whose country is under attack, is quiet, hiding at his dacha for almost 2 weeks. So today I would like to read this his statement, auto-translated by Google into English, and kind of discuss, give you my take on it. But just to start with, it's just really astounding. Shows the leadership when you're under stress, when things don't go your way. Real leaders act like real leaders. Remember Zelensky saying, I don't need evacuation, I need ammo. And this Comrade Stalin hiding for almost 2 weeks while Germany is on a full attack on his country. Alright, so here we go. Comrades, товарищи, standard, of course, greetings. Citizens, граждане, brothers and sisters. So this was first extremely unusual way to address your citizens as brothers and sisters. By 1941, the image of Stalin was up there next to Lenin. Even in the end, he will say, we are Communist Party of Lenin and Stalin. So Stalin was raised to the level of Lenin, and quite often on their art, their propaganda, they quite often kind of showed Stalin slightly larger than Lenin, or Stalin telling Lenin something instead of Lenin telling Stalin something. So there was already this, image of Stalin was as big as Lenin's. So, we had two Soviet Jesus at that time. And suddenly Soviet Jesus tells people, you're my brothers and sisters. Soldiers of our army and navy, I am addressing you, my friends. Once again, nowadays, you're my friends. The treacherous military attack of Nazi Germany on our motherland, which began on June 22nd, continues. Despite the heroic resistance of the Red Army, was hardly any heroic resistance, as we learned many years later. Despite the fact that the best divisions of the enemy and the best units of its aviation have already been defeated, total lie. The losses of Germany, German troops in the summer of 1941 were so small comparing for amount of territory they conquered and amount of POWs they conquered. Like almost 3 to 5 million Soviet soldiers were taken as POWs in the summer, fall 1941. And when the people started doing the actual math, comparing numbers, the losses of German army was just ridiculously low. Usually attacking army losing way more troops than army that defends. In this case, it was like close to, I can't remember the numbers, unfortunately, like 10 to 1. So for every Soviet soldier lost, there'll be one German, or maybe even like 30 to 1. So losses were actually really small. So he's lying right there, or doesn't have any information. So he already said the best units already defeated. So despite all that, and found their graves on the battlefields, the enemy continues to push forward. How that happened? Throwing new forces to the front. Hitler's troops managed to capture Lithuania, a significant part of Latvia, the western part of Belarus, a part of western Ukraine. The fascist aviation is expanding the areas of action of its bombers, bombing Murmansk, Orsha, Mogilov, Smolensk, Kiev, Odessa, and Sevastopol. And it's interesting how the language, for some reason, we started calling Germany fascist, or at some point, because fascism, it's actually kind of like Italian thing, and Germany has they had fascist party, right? And Germany has a National Socialist Workers' Party. So they were Nazis because they were nationalists, German nationalists. But for some reason they, like Soviet propaganda, all picked up the Germans were always fascist. A serious danger hangs over our motherland. How could it happen that our glorious Red Army surrendered a number of our cities and regions to the fascist troops? It's a great question, Comrade Stalin. What happened? This is like, there is a really good book by Salonin who analyzed, and it's basically when we discovered that a lot of information that Soviet historians provided was total lies, like how many troops were already at the border. At that time was German troops, occupied Poland on both sides. So initially it was lies, like we had no troops, we weren't ready, we were just peacefully sleeping country, minding our own business, and suddenly Germany attacked us. So, that's why they rolled so fast. In fact, there were so many troops. There was a first wave already setting up by the border. There was a second strategic front moving in, and a third was being built and started moving towards. So it was 3 strategic fronts. So first wave of attack from the Soviet Union, Red Army, then second and third. So Hitler kind of caught them right in the middle, like what I'm picturing what happened, right when the Red Army was in this position, with the giant axe to hit Hitler in the back while he's busy with Great Britain. Supposedly he was planning to invade Great Britain. German army managed to strike right in the stomach and open and guts fell out. So this is how the Red Army got caught completely in the process of about to hit Germany. So that's kind of what makes sense. So what he's saying, let's see what his explanation. Are the Nazi troops, and now he's jumping from fascist troops, now they're Nazi troops. Are the Nazi troops are really invincible, and the boastful Nazi propagandists as the boastful Nazi propagandists tirelessly trumpet? Of course not. History shows that there are no such invisible armies, never have been. Napoleon's army, so it's a French army of War of 1812, was considered invincible, but it was defeated successfully by Russian, English, and German troops. William's German army during First Imperialist War was also considered an invisible army, but it suffered defeats several times from Russian and Anglo-French troops, and it was finally defeated by Anglo-French troops. So here he kind of gives a little lesson of history, but he doesn't mention anything that Russia pulled out and kind of left their союзники, so their partners, Entente partners on their own, and Germany was able to move a bunch of troops from the Eastern Front to the Western Front. But anyways, there's a little kind of too much information for me, like historical references, but let's see what else he says. This same must be said about the current Nazi army of Hitler. This army has not yet encountered serious resistance on the European continent, which is kind of true. In fact, once again, when the people started comparing numbers, when we after collapse of the Soviet Union, there was some access to archives. Germany lost way more troops during war against Poland versus what territory they occupied in the summer of 1941. So they managed to occupy way more territory, or comparable to Polish territory. So if you compare like apples to apples, what they did in Poland and the size of territory in Soviet Union they occupied, they lost way less troops. So the Polish put up way more fight than the Red Army did in the summer of 1941. So this army has not yet encountered serious resistance on the European continent. While it would probably, Polish army will do better resistance if you wouldn't stab Poland into the back and move your troops into Poland in 1939. Only on our territory has it encountered serious resistance. Absolute lie. And if, as a result of this resistance, the best divisions of German fascist army, so you see he's constantly flip-flopping between fascist, Nazi, Nazi, fascist. So the best divisions of German fascist army were defeated by our Red Army, then this means that Hitler's fascist army can also be defeated and will be defeated, just as the armies of Napoleon and Wilhelm were defeated. As for the fact that part of our territory was nevertheless captured by the German fascist troops, this is explained mainly by the fact that the war of fascist Germany against the USSR began under favorable conditions for the German troops and unfavorable ones for the Soviet troops. Okay, sure. Considering the fact that in June 1941, Red Army was the largest army in the world, and it had more tanks than the rest of the world combined, he's saying that it was unfavorable conditions. So, and of course, no one else in the world had tanks even close to the Soviet tanks, like T-34, which is, we considered at that time, it's medium tank, although it should be heavy tank. Not a single country had diesel engine tanks. Soviet Union had T-34s, KV-1s, KV-2s. Those were diesel, so there was a next generation. And of course, no one else in the world had heavy tanks like KV-1 and KV-2. But sure, tell us more about unfavorable conditions of the Soviet troops. The fact is that the troops of Germany, as a country waging war, were already completely mobilized, and 170 divisions thrown by Germany against the USSR and moved up to the borders of the USSR were in state of complete readiness, waiting only for a signal to act, while the Soviet troops still had to mobilize and move up to the borders. Once again, a half true, half lie. Of course, Soviet Union declared mobilization the next day, June 23rd, on Monday, and literally in a couple of weeks they added 5 million more troops. So Germany was already at its max, at its peak. It was mobilized, and I think they had 3 million troops at the eastern border, start of the war. Soviet Union added to whatever they already had another 5 million, just like that. But of course, this is already July 3rd. Already Red Army had way more troops than German army, but he's keep on telling that story. And that's kind of what I was taught in the history lessons in the Soviet Union. We basically had no army. We were just oh my God, there was no one to defend. That's why Germany rolled all the way to Moscow and then later to Stalingrad. And of course, you don't need to move up to the borders, right? If you knew there's no way Germany could amass such a giant amount of troops along the border, you didn't know about it. So you should be moving away from the border and start digging trenches, building defenses. Look how Ukraine fighting Russia right now, kind of somewhat similar situation, right? So if you're on defense, if you do know what you're doing and your troops are willing to fight, you can actually fight really well even against the forces that way stronger, bigger than you. In this case, Red Army had numerical superiority huge on everything. Planes, tanks, troops, but German troops were going through this Red Army like hot knife through butter. It's pretty insane to think about it. So here he continues to explain the failure. Of no small importance here was the fact that Nazi Germany unexpectedly and treacherously violated the non-aggression pact concluded in 1939 between Germany and the Soviet Union without taking into account the fact that it would be recognized by the entire world as the attacking party. Okay, so this part, it's I want to read it again. So Germany unexpectedly and treacherously violated the non-aggression pact. Sure, it did. But, and this is what only when we started getting information during Perestroika and we saw the caricatures, the cartoons of Hitler and Stalin when they jointly attacked Poland. And basically all these jokes were about they both are getting ready to attack each other. Hitler hiding a gun behind his back while shaking Stalin's hand and Stalin hiding his axe. So in the Western media, the topic that is just a question of time when Germany and Soviet Union are going to attack each other. So it was like, my goodness, everyone saw it coming. And here's the leader of Soviet Union is like, well, it was treacherous and unexpected. No one saw it coming. We were like best buds. We tore apart Poland together. So, why would we, and then another reference, they didn't take into account, Germany didn't take into account that the entire world recognized them an attacking party. Like Germany cared at that point. They already attacked Poland, and knowing that UK, kind of sign up agreement like a war attack against you, Poland, will consider as attacking us, and they declared war on Germany, right? I mean, it was so-called strange war, but still, Germany is already at the war with the largest empire of the world, United Kingdom. Why would they care for entire rest of the world? So this statement is just so silly. They didn't take into account that it will be recognized that they're aggressors. Okay, did Soviet Union take into account when they attacked Finland that it will be taken as aggression, or when they occupied Baltic states? It's all right. Moving along, and of course, if you listen to his original speech, it's pretty impressive, like how strong his Georgian accent. Like he was speaking Russian with such a strong accent, like holy cow. So anyway, that's just a different part, but it is clear that our peace-loving country, okay, and this is once again, peace-loving country attacked Finland in 1939, Winter War, just for no reason. Well, for reason they wanted to occupy the entire Finland. They, forced Romania to give up its territories under, warning, we're going to attack you. They forced the Baltic states to sign non-aggression pacts. Then they moved their troops into those republics and occupied them. They attacked Poland together with Germany, having this secret pact when they already line up borders, how they're going to carve Poland. So this peace-loving country statement is a total lie. But, and that's how they were taught us in history classes. Like, I remember it was just like, man, everything was going so well for Soviet Union, the other republics wanted to join us, Baltic, Moldovan Republic suddenly appeared, so Soviet Union was growing, everything was great with such a peaceful, loving country. And, during that peace-loving period, I think Soviet Union, with war against Finland, they lost like 150,000 troops, something like that crazy. So yeah, peace-loving country, my ass. It is clear that our peace-loving country, not wishing to take the initiative in violating the pact, could not take the path of treachery. This is a really interesting topic, and I'm reading a lot of books and listening, so I strongly believe Hitler beat Stalin literally by maybe 10 days. There's some people like Salonin, Suvorov, the couple guys that kind of dig in this topic, wrote books. It looks like Soviet Union was planning to attack on July 6th. Sunday, July 6th, that's when the Soviet Union was supposed to attack German troops in Poland. And on June 22nd, there's another thing they're looking at too. We'll see it. Stalin will mention here about so-called provocations. That was bizarre. There was so many orders when Germany attacked on June 22nd, Sunday. A lot of orders from Moscow were mentioning, do not get involved in the provocations, like do not shoot back. And, commanders of the Red troops on the border were kind of, what we're supposed to do, like they attack us, but the orders from Kremlin says do not respond because it's a provocation. And it's really bizarre, like why would they consider that provocation? So the good explanation, once again, all the archives in Russia regards to World War II, they're still classified. There is almost 90 years since the war had begun. Will be 90 years soon. It's still classified. But what makes sense, explanation that, just like before they started war against Finland, there was provocation. They said, oh, look, Finnish, they shot artillery at our troops dies, and we're going to punish Finland. There was a similar, or maybe larger scale planned to bomb some Soviet cities on Sunday, June 22nd, and then do some provocations on the border, just like Hitler did when he attacked Poland, right? And then claim Germany that, hey, look, we're such a peaceful country, and you attack, all this, you bombed us, you killed peaceful people on Sunday morning. So this is kind of explains, if that's the truth, that the Soviet Union was planning, Soviet Union leaders were planning this pretty large-scale provocation of bombing their own cities, killing their own troops on the border, and then blame Germany for attacking, and then launching full-blown attack on July 6th. So it is clear that our peace-loving country not wishing to take initiative in violating pact. So it's like not willing to take the initiative to violate the pact. This is an interesting statement. Like yeah, we were considering, but decided not to do it. Could not take the path of treachery. Okay. One may ask, how could it happen that the Soviet government agreed to conclude an non-aggression pact with such treacherous people and monsters as Hitler and Ribbentrop? So now, he's working back like, hey, let me explain you because, we did it, but now I'm going to explain you why we goofed it up. So let's see what he says. And before we continue, like at this point, who cares, right? Fight is already going on. There's a blood spilled. There's a full-blown aggression. You can talk about it later. There's no time for that. Your media will find excuse. You just say, yeah, we got betrayed. We got stabbed in the back. Let's hit it. No, he has like long spiel about explaining like why we did that. So let's see what he says. So, treacherous people and monsters as Hitler and Ribbentrop. Well, I don't think Ribbentrop was a monster. Wasn't that mistake made by the Soviet government here? Of course not. Yeah, it was. I don't want to. It was a mistake. You basically, instead of anyway, a non-aggression pact is a peace pact between two states. It was precisely such a pact that Germany proposed to us in 1939. Once again, not true. It was Soviet Union that proposed Germany. Soviet Union initiated talks in Berlin, kind of hinting, hey, we might be interested to have a little chit-chat with you because we can't get what we want from the Western countries because, we would like to fight Hitler in Czechoslovakia, so we need to move our troops in Poland. And the United Kingdom like, whoa. And Poland like, whoa, we're not interested in this type of defense. So he's like, okay, then we're gonna make a deal with Hitler. So it was actually the Soviet Union who initiated talks and invited Ribbentrop to come to Moscow. And they already had everything prepared. Like if you look at the time frame between Ribbentrop arriving to Moscow and how quickly everything was wrapped up, it was like end of August and September 1st. Germany already attacked Poland. So, Germany was already on the verge of attack and Hitler just basically got confirmation from Stalin, we're cool. As long as we can have a half of Poland, do whatever you want. And so it was precisely such a pact that Germany proposed to us in 1939. Could the Soviet government refuse such a proposal? Sure. In 1939, there was no common border between Soviet Union and Germany. It was Poland between. So there was no way Germany could treacherously attack Soviet Union with the country between them. So what you did with this pact, by secretly agreeing to together destroy Poland, you created a common border. For some reason, you wanted the common border. So you put yourself in a more vulnerable position if you were not planning to attack Germany, or you put in a position that you can actually attack Germany anytime you want, but Hitler beat you to it. So I think that no peace-loving state can refuse a peace agreement with a neighboring power. It was not your neighboring power. In 1939, your neighbor was Poland, and you destroyed that country. If at the head of that power stands even such monsters and cannibals as Hitler-Ribbentrop, once again, imagine you get washed up on the island, and where's a cannibal lives there named Hitler. And you're like, you know what, I'm gonna make agreement. Like, he offers me peace, we'll sign agreement that he won't eat me. Like, if you know he's a bad guy, he's a cannibal, there's no point to sign agreement. Sooner or later, he'll try to eat you. But anyways, look at this. That's hilarious. I never actually read it, so I'm like getting more excited as I go along. So, okay, I think that no peace-loving state can refuse a peace agreement with a neighboring power. Even if had, okay, we read that. And this, of course, on one indispensable condition. If the peace agreement does not affect, either directly or indirectly, the territorial integrity, independence, and honor of the peace-loving state. Nice. Do you gonna talk about the secret attachment to that agreement? As is well known, the non-aggression pact between Germany and the USSR is precisely such a pact. So it protected the territorial integrity, independence, and honor of Soviet Union. Plus, Hitler agreed, yeah, you can have Baltic states, you can have southern part of Romania. We don't mind if you get those. And we're going to split together Poland. So, of course, it's a great agreement for territorial integrity of the Soviet Union, taking a half of the Poland. What did we gain by concluding the non-aggression pact with Germany? You got war on June 22nd, 1941. We ensured our country peace for a year and a half and the opportunity to prepare its forces to resist if fascist Germany were to risk attacking our country in defiance of the pact. Did you prepare your forces? Germans rolled through the western part of the Soviet Union with like minimum resistance, reached Moscow, reached Stalingrad next year, and it gave you opportunity to prepare forces? Really? Oh my goodness. Oh, unfortunately, I believed all that BS, because that's what exactly taught us in the history classes. Like, yeah, we bought ourselves a year and a half. Yeah, of what? Of continuing aggression of neighboring country together. While Germany took half Poland, you took half Poland, you took Baltic states, you started war with Finland. Like, yeah, you were busy, peace-loving Soviet Union. Oh my God. This was a definite gain for us and a loss for fascist Germany. Okay, so really, it was a loss. How much strategic supplies you sent to Germany, grain, metals, oil, because after Germany attacked Poland, and United Kingdom declared war, they blockaded Germany. So Germany was saved by Soviet Union because Soviet Union was shipping stuff like crazy. So yeah, it definitely was a big loss for Germany. What did fascist Germany gain and what did it lose by treacherously breaking the pact and attacking the USSR? It achieved a certain advantageous position for its troops in a short period of time, but it lost politically, exposing itself in the eyes of the entire world as a bloody aggressor. Oh, really? I believe Soviet Union was kicked out of League of Nations for being a bloody aggressor and attacking Finland, but of course we don't need to mention that. There can be no doubt that this short-term military gain for Germany is only an episode, while the enormous political gain for the USSR is a serious and long-term factor on the basis of which the decisive military successes of the Red Army in the war with fascist Germany must unfold. So basically, like, yeah, we got screwed big time, but it was all good. Like, yeah, Germany made a bad deal, we made a great deal, and we got screwed on this deal. It still was a good deal because, oh my gosh, he's just doing this willy-nilly, this way and that way. This is how it was good, and then just caught us unprepared. Okay. That is why our entire army, our entire navy, all our hawk pilots, Stalinsky Sokol, they're hawks. All the people of our country, all the best people of Europe, America, and Asia, and finally, all the best people of Germany condemn the treacherous actions of the German fascists and sympathize with the Soviet government, approve of the behavior of Soviet government, and see that our cause is just, that the enemy will be defeated, that we must win. So, in my opinion, Hitler never had a chance to win. The Soviet Union, I think Bismarck claimed a long time ago that Russia is too big to win. So Germany had never had a chance, in my opinion. And like if you look at the Barbarossa plan, they never planned to occupy the entire Soviet Union. There was a line like Murmansk along the Volga. So they wanted just to destroy the Soviet troops, Red Army troops, They were concentrating on the border with Germany-occupied Poland, and the established kind of pushed him into Siberia and established new border. They never planned to occupy. And like in interesting math, so at its peak, when German troops were at Caucasian area, right, reached Caucasus in Stalingrad, they occupied only 5% of like Russian Federation territory. Just 5% of Russian Federation was occupied at the peak of German occupation. They still had 95% to go if they want to try to occupy the entire, Soviet Union with all the power, and just the Russian Federation or Kazakhstan. I'm not talking about it. It's insane. So yeah, it was a desperate attempt of Hitler to basically, that was a suicide charge. I mean, he extended the life of the Third Reich for several years, but he was doomed regardless. It's my opinion. All right, so where are we at here? Just a second, let me find it. Due to the war imposed on us, our country has entered into mortal battle with its most evil and insidious enemy, German fascism. So it was totally cool to make agreements and deals, peaceful deals with most insidious evil enemy, German fascism, but now we have to fight it. So it's like this whole thing, like, my God, dude. Our troops are heroically fighting the enemy, armed to the teeth with tanks and aircraft. The Red Army and the Red Navy, overcoming numerous difficulties, are selfishly fighting for every inch, well, it should be every centimeter of the Soviet soil. No, they didn't. My grandpa got drafted, I think, in July. The whole of his outfit, of they ran out of ammo and food, they just walked to Germans and they all surrendered. And millions of Red Army soldiers did that. And Soviets were also armed to the teeth with tanks and aircrafts. Like, superiority was just in numbers was mind-blowing. The only problem for Red Army, Soviet soldiers didn't want to fight. And that's the thing. This is basically, that was kind of what Stalin did to the Soviet people or Russian people, Ukrainian people, collectivization, all that stuff in the 30s, all that terror, they didn't want to fight for this system and they just were like, whatever. So I think that's why the Red Army failed so pathetically in 1941 and then 1942 again. And then the German meat grinder pretty much broke down processing Soviet meat. Because, losing 27 million in one war, it's insane. The main forces of the Red Army, armed with the thousands of tanks and planes, are entering the battle. Okay, so you're talking about July, probably the second wave was entering. So the one on the train. So the first one already was processed, destroyed, they surrendered, lost thousands of tanks. I think by July, early August, that was the second strategic front, was Germany started processing that. So the bravery of the soldiers of the Red Army is unparalleled. Turned out to be not true. Our resistance to the enemy is growing stronger and stronger. Together with the Red Army, the entire Soviet people are rising to defend the motherland. So there's a really interesting topic here. So together with the Red Army, the entire Soviet people are rising. When war is over, and there was a toast, the Stalin raised his glass of champagne to celebrate the victory. He didn't say Soviet people. He said, I'm drinking to Russian people, which is really interesting. So the whole lingo changed over the period of this war. And when Soviet government realized that Soviet people don't want to fight for Soviet values, they changed their talking points to Russia, great Russia, Russian people, evil invaders, and they brought all the history of before that they were kind of shying away. And they said in the end, it culminated in Stalin saying that I want to drink to the Russian people who won in the war. But here he's still talking about Soviet people. What is required to eliminate the danger hanging over our motherland, and what measures must be taken to defeat the enemy? First of all, it is necessary for our people, the Soviet people, to understand the full depth of danger that threatens our country and to abandon complacency, carelessness, and the mood of peaceful construction, which were quite understandable in pre-war times, but are pernicious at the present time when the war has radically changed the situation. Alright, and now I think it's the most important part because it shows that Stalin, I couldn't say, but what he said, it sounds like he has no clue why Hitler attacked Soviet Union, or he doesn't want to say it. If he knew the real reason, which probably he did, he realized that Hitler realized that Stalin about to hit him in the back with his giant axe, so he just kind of did a preemptive strike. But listen what he said to his people, which makes zero sense, like 0 sense. The enemy is cruel and implacable. His goal is to seize our lands, watered by our sweat, to seize our grain and our oil obtained by our labor. Okay, I kind of will buy that, yeah, but they wanted our oil. Okay, sure. Now listen to this. His goal is to restore the power of the landlords, like Pomeshchikov, to restore Tsarism, to destroy the national culture and national statehood of the Russian, Ukrainians, Belarusian, Lithuanians, and it goes through all these Armenians people. So Stalin claims right here that Hitler came with war to restore Tsar, to restore the Russian Tsar. So this is like the dumbest statement you can come up with. Like, he's just, throwing anything on the wall, whatever will stick. Like, it was a good deal, but it was a bad deal because it was bad people, but we should trust him. And you know what? He's going to send landlords. So guess what? There will be no more collective farms. Landlords going to take everything and the Tsar will be back. It's like, what the heck? Like, this is to restore Tsarism. That Hitler had this statement like, yeah, we found the surviving son of Nicholas II, so he's going to be the new Russian Tsar. Like, this statement just makes 0 sense. So he's saying that, the Germans planning to Germanize all those nations, to turn them into slaves of the German princes and barons. Thus, it is a matter of life and death for the Soviet state, of life and death for the people of the USSR, of whatever of the people of the Soviet Union will be free or fall into enslavement. It is necessary for the Soviet people to understand this and stop being carefree, for them to mobilize themselves and recognize their work in a new military manner, which knows no mercy for the enemy. So this kind of statement, hey, you gotta stop being carefree because they come to turn you into slaves. Because, working for collective farm is cool, and then now you gotta have a landowner and they're gonna make you work again, just like we make you work in a kolkhoz. But a statement about bringing Tsar back, it's a most interesting part, I believe. So they keep for some reason thinking that Soviet people are carefree, but I think it's a language like do not hope and don't cooperate with Germans. All right, let's see what else get here. It is necessary there should be no room in our ranks for whiners and cowards, panic mongers and deserters, that our people should know no fear in the struggle and selflessly go to our patriotic war of liberation against the fascist enslavers. The great Lenin, who created our state, said that the main quality of the Soviet people should be bravery, courage, ignorance and fear in the struggle, readiness to fight together with the people against the enemies of our motherland. I was trying to say something about Lenin, but that was kind of interesting part. So I think Mikoyan, he was one of the top Soviet officials at that time. In his memoirs, he wrote that when Stalin learned about the beginning of the war, not how he planned to start the war, and then how bad things were progressing in early June and then after July, he said that Lenin created the state and we effed it up. Like, he actually said prasrali, like it's word kind of like took a shit. So yeah, like Lenin created the state and we like, yeah, you're the leader, so that's your fault, buddy. But yeah, that here he's mentioned that yes, Lenin created the state. It is necessary that this magnificent quality of the Bolsheviks become the property of millions and millions of the Red Army, our Red Navy, and all the peoples of Soviet Union. We must immediately recognize all our work on a military basis, subordinating everything to the interest of the front and the task of organizing the defeat of the enemy. The peoples of the nations of the Soviet Union now see that German fascism is indomitable in its furious anger and hatred for our motherland. So yes, it's just they hate our motherland, that's why they decided to attack us, which has provided all workers with free labor and prosperity. My gosh. The people of the Soviet Union must rise up, defend their rights and their land against the enemy. The Red Army, the Red Navy, and all citizens of the Union must defend every centimeters of the Soviet soil, fight to the last drop of blood for our cities and villages, display the courage, initiative, and resourcefulness inherent in our people. We must recognize comprehensive assistance to the Red Army, ensure intensive replenishment of its ranks, ensure its supply with everything necessary, organize the rapid advancement of transport with troops and military cargo, and provide broad assistance to the wounded. We must strengthen the rear of the Red Army, subordinate all our work to the interest of this cause, ensure the intensive work of all enterprises, produce more rifles, machine guns, cartridges, shells, airplanes, organize the protection of factories, power plants, telephone and telegraph communication, and establish local air defense. We must organize the merciless fight against all sorts of rear disorganizers, deserters, panic mongers, rumor mongers, destroy spies, saboteurs, enemy paratroopers, providing rapid assistance to our extermination battalions in all this. So once again, we got a fifth column apparently. It must be borne in mind that the enemy is cunning, sly, experienced in deception, and spreading false rumors. It is necessary to take all this into account and not to succumb to provocations. So this is the word provocations come up here. Like, what kind of provocations can you succumb to? Like, they're gonna provoke you to stop working? It's like, but the language was in the original in the beginning of the war. Do not succumb to provocations. Do not shoot back at Germans. It is necessary to immediately bring to trial before the military tribunal all those who, in their panic and cowardice, interfere with the cause of defense regardless of persons. In the event of forced retreat of unit of the Red Army, so he's already planning that we're gonna be forced to retreat more. It is necessary to hijack all rolling stocks or destroy equipment, not leave a single locomotive, not a single carriage to the enemy, not leave a kilogram of bread, not a little fuel to the enemy. So basically, Scorched Earth already announced on July 3rd. War just had begun. Most German army already destroyed according to Stalin, but now he's saying, hey, we're doing a Scorched Earth. Collective farmers must drive away all livestock, hand over grain to state bodies for safekeeping for its removal to the rear areas. All valuable property, including non-ferrous metals, grain and fuel, which cannot be removed, must be unconditionally destroyed. So once again, in the beginning it was a positive statement. Most of them, German army are gone. We destroyed their elite troops, but now let's do Scorched Earth situation here. In enemy-occupied areas, it is necessary to create partisan detachments mounted and on foot, to create sabotage groups to fight against enemy army units, to incite partisan warfare everywhere and anywhere, to blow up bridges, roads, damage telephone and telegraph communications, to set fire to forests. Why would you set fires to forests? You can say, it's where you're hiding. Warehouses and supply trains. And captured areas create unbearable conditions for the enemy, and all these accomplices pursue and destroy them at every step and disrupt all their activities. The war with fascist Germany cannot be considered an ordinary war. It is not only a war between two armies, it is also a great war of the entire Soviet people against the German fascist troops. The goal of this all-people's patriotic war against the fascist oppressors is not only to eliminate the danger hanging over our country, but also to help all the peoples of Europe groaning under the yoke of German fascism. In this war of liberation, we will not be alone. In this great war, we'll have loyal allies in the peoples of Europe and America, including German people enslaved by Hitlerite bosses. Our war for the freedom of our motherland will merge with struggle of peoples of Europe and America for their independence. Interesting, America is mentioned. For democratic freedom. So now he's talking about democratic freedoms. This will be a united front of people standing for freedom against enslavement and the threat of enslavement by Hitler's fascist armies. In this regard, the historic speech of Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Churchill, about helping the Soviet Union and the declaration of the government of the United States of America about its readiness to help our country, which can only evoke a feeling of gratitude in the hearts of the Soviet Union, are quite understandable and indicative. So now he's like, oh yeah, thanks. Although if you look at the history, like when the Soviet Union was talking about, war, future war, they never mentioned Germany. It was all like Great Britain and allies would be our main enemy. Suddenly like, hey, we are best buds, right? Comrades, our forces are incalculable. The arrogant enemy will soon have to see for himself. Together with the Red Army, many thousands of workers, collective farmers, and intellectuals are rising up to fight the attacking enemies. Millions of our people will rise up. The workers of Moscow, Leningrad have already begun to create people's militia of many thousands to support the Red Army. In every city threatened by enemy invasion, we must create such a people's militia. Call oполченцы. It's not really militia, but I guess kinda. To rouse all workers to fight in order to defend with their own breasts their freedom, their honor, their motherland in our patriotic war against German fascism. That's a pretty long speech, but we're almost there. So, he says, so we talk about militia. In order to quickly mobilize all the forces of the peoples of the USSR to repel the enemy who has treacherously attacked our motherland, the State Defense Committee has been created, in whose hands all the plenitude of power in the state is now concentrated. Okay, it's like before you didn't have a plenitude of power, but now you concentrate even more power. The State Defense Committee has begun its work and calls to all the people to rally around the party of Lenin and Stalin, around the Soviet government for the selfless support of the Red Army and the Red Navy. It's interesting, it constantly mentions Red Navy, although Navy played almost zero part in the war against Germany. It was basically paralyzed, did a little bit during the defense of Crimea. They lost a lot of ships, hardly any submarine activities, but he constantly mentioned in Red Navy. For the defeat of the enemy, for victory, all our forces to support our heroic Red Army, our glorious Red Navy, all the forces of the people to defeat the enemy, forward for our victory. And that concludes the speech of Joseph Stalin on July 3rd, 1941, when he finally came out of hiding and talked to his people, to his brothers and sisters, and explained why he made a good deal with Germany, but then Germany broke that good deal, but it still was a good deal because it was bought us extra time, which we had plenty of time because we didn't have a common border with Germany, but we created common border with Germany by making this awesome agreement with cannibals, German cannibals, but still was a good deal. It's just, oh my goodness. Anyway, but yeah, after reading more books and kind of digging more into it, is definitely Stalin wanted war. Stalin was planning to basically spread socialism to other countries, add more republics to the Soviet Union, and 1940 was a beautiful year for Stalin. He threw everything he had or Soviet people had into the making the most powerful army in the world that had the most amount of tanks, most amount of airplanes. Like the whole entire country was already in a war mode by 1941, and it just he got beat to the punch, and it was a desperate attempt by Hitler. He had no chance, in my opinion. It's just the country is too big. It's just if you compare, size of Germany and the potential of Germany versus Russia, Soviet Union, just no way. Similar, like you look at that, how Japan attacked the United States and Pearl Harbor. It's another suicide jump. There's no way Japan could ever prevail. I mean, I guess they're hoping that if it hits hard enough, United States will, I don't know what, this is just, these little countries attacking these giant countries. Is to think about World War II, started, of course, then they decided, okay, we'll make a, decision that, historians made a decision that we're going to put official date of beginning of World War II is a German attack on Poland. Back in 1939, it was just called war, Polish-German war. No one considered it as a World War II. Just like now, a war, when Russia attacked Ukraine, no one considers it as the beginning of the World War III. I personally believe that's the case. And I think in 50 years, 100 years, in history books, at that time, we'll probably no books, if we will survive without nuclear holocaust, they'll be talking that World War III had begun on February 24th, 2022, when Russia attacked Ukraine. So that's how usually, unfortunately, it goes. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review of the Stalin speech. I'm more than interested to listen to your comments. You know what to do. If you like this video, don't forget to like it. Thank you for watching Ushanka Show. We'll talk to you soon. До побачення. Goodbye.